On July 1st, 1863, two armies converged on this quiet town, each side trying to obtain the highest ground possible for a tactical advantage. That high ground was the ground that you see right behind me, known as Cemetery Ridge. As many as 51,000 soldiers died during the three-day Battle of Gettysburg. But it wasn't just the soldiers who perished. There is a civilian. For those of you who know the story of Gettysburg, you know her well. Her name is Mary Virginia Wade, known affectionately to everybody in the Gettysburg area as Jennie. Mary Virginia Wade was born at 242 Baltimore Street in Gettysburg on May 21, 1843. She was one of 6 children to James Wade and Mary Ann Philby. Her father was a tailor by trade but was often absent, so to help make ends meet, Jennie began working with her mother as a seamstress. The Gettysburg Municipal Building was at one time known as the High Street Jail. Between 1838 and 1850, this building was a second home to Jennie's father. Most of his crimes were related to assault and battery. But by 1860, James was out of jail and living at the Adams County Almshouse. He was listed as insane. Needing a new place to live, Jennie's mother managed to scrape up enough money to purchase a small parcel of land at 51 Breckenridge Street. This is the house that the Wade family lived in when the war came to Gettysburg. Jennie and the rest of the family worked hard to repair their image. They attended church regularly, and in 1862, Jennie was confirmed at St. James Lutheran Church on York Street. Historians believe Jennie became engaged to her childhood friend Jack Skelly before the war. There was no official announcement, and they weren't able to tie the knot before Jack enlisted in the 87th Pennsylvania Infantry. Jennie carried a photo of Jack in her pocket. If she couldn't be with him in person, she wanted his image with her at all times. Jack Skelly was wounded 2 weeks earlier in the Battle of Winchester. He died from his injuries on July 12, 1863, unaware that Jennie died 9 days earlier. In 1862, Jennie's sister Georgia married John Lewis McClellan. The couple made their home on the outskirts of Gettysburg in a 2-story red brick duplex located at 548 Baltimore Street. Unfortunately, newlywed life was soon disrupted by the war. Georgia's husband enlisted in the Pennsylvania Infantry and was not at Gettysburg during the battle. He was also not present for the birth of their first child on June 26, 1863, 4 days before General John Buford's Union cavalry rode into Gettysburg. Jennie and her mother moved in with Georgia to help take care of her and her newborn child. This was also the perfect opportunity to flee the house on Breckenridge Street, as downtown Gettysburg was now in the hands of the Confederates. The family opened their duplex to Union soldiers in need of care. Jennie stationed herself outside the home, offering food and water to Union soldiers as they retreated from the town. But the house was not immune to the violence outside. Bullets rained down on the house, and one even pierced the window, hitting the bedpost where Georgia was lying with her newborn son. you look down here, if you see these houses behind me here, many of them were occupied during the Battle of Gettysburg by Confederate sharpshooters. And they were shooting towards the Jennie Wade house. And one fatal shot took its mark. On the morning of July 3rd, Jennie was up early. She was in the kitchen kneading dough to make bread and biscuits for the soldiers. A selfless act that would prove to be her last. She had swung an interior door towards her to act as an additional barrier between herself and the bullets that would occasionally hit the house. As she was kneading the dough, a bullet tore through both doors, lodging itself in her heart, killing her instantly. Jennie Wade was dead before her body hit the kitchen floor. Her mother, who was sitting in the kitchen, screamed out, "Georgia, your sister is dead." Ironically, just moments before, Jennie had commented to Georgia, "If anyone is to die in this house today, I hope that it is me. For Georgia, you have that little baby." Union soldiers hurried the remaining family members upstairs. Their goal was to get to the cellar, but it was too dangerous to step outside on that side of the building to access the cellar doors. Their only chance was to access the other side of the duplex through a hole in the wall made by a 10-pound parrot shell that had crashed through the roofline of the house. The plan was to crawl through the hole in the upstairs room to the duplex on the other side, work their way down the stairs to the first floor, exit the house through a side door, and head into the cellar. The soldiers and the family hurried up the stairs and began removing more bricks from the wall opening to make it easier to get to the other side of the duplex. But Jennie's mother was still in the kitchen, cradling the body of her 20-year-old daughter. Mary Ann Wade wasn't going anywhere without her beloved Jennie. Soldiers wrapped Jennie's body in a quilt, carried her up to the second floor, passed her through the hole in the wall and into the other side of the duplex. Then they headed down the back stairway and finally into the cellar, where the entire family waited out the day, trying desperately to avoid the raining bullets from the warring armies. As the day ended, Pickett's charge saw the death of over 6,000 Confederate soldiers. General Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia had met with a decisive defeat, and the Wade family climbed out of the cellar, leaving Jennie's lifeless body wrapped in the quilt. The next day was a rainy and somber Independence Day. As the Confederates retreated from the town, the Wade family was procuring a coffin. Jennie was still wearing her apron when they placed her body in the casket. In her pocket was the photograph of her fiancé Jack, and her hands were still covered with flour and dough. She was buried in the backyard. Later, her body was moved to the German Reformed Church graveyard, and then eventually to Evergreen Cemetery. Since that fateful day, many visitors to the Jennie Wade house say they have experienced paranormal activity. Paranormal investigators and tourists alike flock to the home, eager for their chance to experience something supernatural. The stories of Jennie Wade's ghost haunting the home are plentiful. Witnesses have captured EVPs of ghostly whispers and moans. Video footage show orbs zooming through the walls and hovering around the spot in the kitchen where Jennie was killed. Jennie's footsteps echo through the house, despite there being no physical presence here. Even guests staying at the hotel next door have claimed to catch glimpses of a somber young woman peering out of the kitchen window when the house is empty. These reports have contributed to the legend of Jennie Wade's ghost, and many believe that her tragic death left a lasting imprint on the home. But Jennie's ghost may not be the only spirit to haunt this modest location. Other spirits seem to have taken up residence in the historic home. In 1991, a team of paranormal investigators, accompanied by renowned psychic Carol Kirkpatrick, visited the Jennie Wade house. The investigators followed the same path that Union soldiers had taken with Jennie's body all those years ago, ending up in the cellar. The cellar of the house can be unsettling, even in broad daylight. Visitors are met with a wax figure of a body that is meant to represent Jennie's remains. She's covered in a quilt and laid out on a table. Until recently, A chain ran across the room to keep visitors a safe distance from Jennie's display. Although the known history of the house involves the ghost of Jennie, Kirkpatrick did not feel her presence. Instead, she sensed an unsettling presence that seemed to possess the emotion of something that was left unfinished. Kirkpatrick suggested that it was the spirit of a father who had not been able to properly mourn the loss of his loved one. The group made their way up the stairs, leaving the eerie atmosphere of the cellar behind them. As they emerged into the bright sunlight, something seemed to catch Kirkpatrick's attention, and she abruptly turned around to peek back into the cellar. She pointed across the room to the chain that ran from a solid brick pillar to the stone wall. The chain began to sway back and forth, as if it was a solid piece, moving as one unit rather than swaying in waves. It swung for a full minute, and then stopped just as abruptly as it started, leaving the group bewildered. Kirkpatrick had a feeling that the presence in the cellar was Jennie's father, trying to communicate something to them, something left undone. Kirkpatrick did not know the full story of James Wade, or that he had been incarcerated at the time of his daughter's death. A life turned to insanity for a father, a war raging throughout the town, killing tens of thousands of American soldiers, and a life cut short while baking bread for wounded soldiers. All lend to the ghostly imprints that haunt the Jennie Wade house in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But are these imprints residual or intelligent haunts? Or are they haunts at all? I'll let you decide.